my name is Gino and welcome to Warframe Fashion Review. In this series, I break down specific fashion components such as skins, armor, helmets, and most importantly, sandanas. With the lengthy intro out of the way, let's get to reviewing the Saren Deluxe, or Orphid. So taking a look at this skin, you might be wondering what exactly is an Orphid skin and how does it differ from kind of the main components of the rest of Saren's skins? Well, for starters, it's a deluxe. What that means is it's got a completely separate model from the original. Getting a bit into the nitty-gritty, that means that it has completely separate color channels and completely separate energy placement from what you might find on typical skins. What this means is that you'll have to pay a little bit extra money to get this skin. I'll go over that more in detail later on. Taking a look at the skin, we notice that the primary is this very nice glossy blue. It's a solid color channel, but fades into what appears to be a mixture of energy channels. There's very little noise on this texture, which means that it's good for pretty much any color scheme. Dark, light, orange, or purple, whatever you put on here, it's probably going to look really good. Moving on to the second color channel, it's this very solid, very even toned texture that appears to be broken up by energy channels. Honestly, I would say so far so good with this skin. It looks to be pretty well balanced and doesn't have a lot of noise in the primary or secondary colors. Moving on to the tertiary, we have what appears to be a blended color channel. It has a very strange mix of light, almost energy channel-esque colors that seem to bleed out into the secondary and the primary. It also stands out quite a bit more from the rest of the skin, so I'm not really sure what they were intending on when they made this particular color channel, but I think it's pretty good overall. I would say that it would look very good with darker primary and secondary to bring out those highlights, which is basically what it is. For the accents this time around, we don't actually have a traditional metallic. We have what appears to be, again, a more glossy sort of look that includes the spores on her hips and the inside of her collar, as well as her shoes, which I'm going to get into very soon. I think the main selling point for this skin is actually the color channels for the energy. They're very bright. They incorporate a lot of the skin's texture economy onto them, and they really draw and catch the eye. A lot of energy is more subdued on a lot of other skins, and so I'm glad here it takes center stage to a lot of the skin's available texture. Unfortunately, I think the downside to this whole thing is that because it is a little bit of an older deluxe skin, it doesn't really take into account the dual color channels for the energy, and so there is a lot of energy here that could be used for more color variation and ends up not being able to do very much with it. Wrapping up with the primary color channel breakdowns, I'm going to have to say that my only real complaint with this skin so far is the spores on her hips and on her dress and the back leg. It really kind of breaks the whole smooth thematic that they have going on here and instead replaces it with the typical Saren infested theme. And while I think that makes sense, sort of, I also think that mixing up those two thematics, one being a flower and the other being the spores from the infested, it makes me kind of feel like my skin's crawling instead of making it seem like there's a cohesive thematic between regular Saren and Saren Orphid. Which isn't to say that I don't like the infested thematic, it's more just that it's such a stark contrast to what this thing is trying to do that it makes me kind of feel uncomfortable. Going from kind of the top down, we're going to start with the helmet next for the model breakdown. So the helmet has this very alien looking aesthetic, which again sort of clashes, but also still retains that smooth, flowery feel. It also has a very flared out back of the head and these dangly bits, which I'm not really sure what they were going for with, but it doesn't look too bad. This is definitely not my favorite helmet for Saren though. If you're buying this skin, you're more than likely going to purchase it for the actual skin itself and not necessarily the helmet. Going down to her neck and shoulders, we have this very nice, very wide collar that leaves room for her neck to actually be a neck and shows us kind of the interior of this flowered design for her coat. On her shoulder is a very nice flower with a very, very nice batch of color channels and what appears to be a very nice batch of pollen that, unlike the spores on her hips, doesn't seem to clash too much, being that it's inside of a flower. As an extra little tidbit, unlike Banshee Deluxe, where you can actually remove components of her deluxe skin, you are unable to remove this little flower on her shoulder, despite what you might think upon first glance. I know I certainly did, given that the model for the flower is entirely separate from the model of the rest of the skin. moving down, we get to the bottom of her coat with the beautiful energy channels that I mentioned earlier, as well as these very interesting little dangly bits. I'm not really sure what the point of these are, but they don't look exactly obtrusive, so I'm going to have to give them a little bit of style points at the very least for being able to fit these in, since they don't really fit with the thematic of a flower. I mean, who puts pulleys on their flower? My one big gripe with this section of the model right here is that her arms very clearly clip through the entire thing. It seems like there was almost no effort in order to prevent this from happening. And that really disappoints me because had this skin had proper cloth effects, I'd probably be rating it a little bit higher than my ultimate score will be. Another thing to note as well, and you might not notice it because the skin's a bit busy clipping, but the arms actually have a bit of noise on them, which may mess up any kind of coloring you do with the skin, given that it is part of the primary color. Finally, and simultaneously the worst and best part of this review, arguably, are these fucking feet. Now, I'm just going to be honest with you, okay? When I first saw this skin, I thought that these feet would have some kind of heel on them or something, but that is absolutely not the case. No, instead, she's literally just standing on air. As somebody who's actively worn heels before, you still get some kind of support from the heel. But instead, in this, she has zero support at all. And while that might not bother a lot of people, it really just gets to me for some reason. Not only because it's not practical, much less for what is an object of destruction, but the tops of these shoes are so fucking ugly. Like, the rest of this skin is really beautiful, I think. Aside from the obvious clipping with the jacket, you know, these feet make no sense. These shoes make no sense. What is she wearing? Some kind of a flipper? Like, I'm sorry. These shoes are fucking terrible. Which isn't to say that this can't be implemented properly. Atlas Deluxe has a similar kind of style where he's pretty much standing on his tippy toes, but you have the execution on that skin a lot better. I actually waited until I was able to get Nitro because not only do I just need Nitro anyway because I'm addicted to the emojis, but I felt like, oh, well, this would be a fantastic reason to get Nitro and then get the Sarin Deluxe because I'm not going to buy it any other way. These shoes ruin this skin for me, and I still don't use it, even though, you know, I'm obviously doing the review now. I still don't use it because I don't feel like it's up to par with my personal standards. Now, if you love this skin, if you love these shoes, if you love everything about this and you are just head over heels about the skin, that's fine. Nobody is going to tell you that what you're doing with your fashion frame is wrong. You know, if it's beautiful and you feel beautiful, then you be you and you be beautiful. But for me, personally, I can't stand these fucking feet. Now, moving on so that I don't rant for 10 minutes about feet and how much I hate these feet, we're going to go and move to our preset skin. So what I've done here is I've gone through and I've done up some fashion frame and I've kind of tried to make this skin sort of in line with a thematic that I have running with a couple of other Warframes, which is kind of a flower thematic, and it only makes sense for, you know, a flower to have a flower thematic. So I just went ahead and I put some flowery colors, some very pale pinks, some calmer whites, some very nice greens that aren't going to be too overwhelming, and I kind of mixed those together in a way that's going to make more sense for me. Now, you don't have to follow this template. I just figured it would only make sense because I'm critiquing this to then give you a skin with fashion that would be easy for you to potentially replicate. I'm going to be honest with you here. I don't think that there's going to be a lot of armor pieces that are going to synergize very well with this skin. It's got a very unique design in a lot of places that ends up having some armor pieces clip, some being too big, some not really fitting around her arms or her chest correctly, and quite frankly, I don't really feel like her legs need the armor. I've tried to put some armor pieces on. I've tried, for example, the Atavist, as well as some other obvious choices like the Embolist or the Magger, and unfortunately, I'm not a fan of any of those on her legs. You could stick some other ones like the Pakal or the Daedalus, but again, those don't really complement the legs, they more just add bulk to them. So what I ended up going for was the Prisma Daedalus chest plate, the Ceramica shoulder plates, and that was pretty much it. They fit really well and they didn't take up too much space while sharing some of the same kind of solid color channels that I wanted. Finally, for the Sandana, I did something a little bit different. I went ahead and I bought the Bodo Sandana. I felt like the overall color channels and the thematic of the Sandana, while not filling in for any of the faults of the skin, just kind of complemented it in a way that made sense. It's got some flowers on it and it looks not too far removed from the skin thematic as a whole.
Moving on, we're now going to see how Saren Deluxe looks in actual mission lighting. So as you can see here, I'm in a darker mission, and you can actually see the skin itself has these very beautiful bioluminescent colors matching with your energy coloration of choice. And I think, again, some of the best parts of the skin are its energy channels and how beautiful they are. Aside from that, it's just kind of box standard. You're going to have, colors of the mission sort of bleeding in and fading out of your Warframe on certain occasions, and overall how it moves and how it feels to actually have the skin on is not terrible. Again, aside from the feet, the skin is just really good.
Kind of wrapping all of that up, where can you get the Saren Deluxe? Well, you can buy it on the Warframe market for $165 for just the skin, or you can get the Saren Deluxe Skin Collection, which is $200 platinum. Alternatively, if you are a fan of Discord Nitro, you can go with the $10 pack and you will get the Saren Deluxe for free. Personally, I think going through the Discord Nitro is probably going to be your best bet if you want a whole bunch of other stuff. So the Discord Nitro bundle comes with a metric literal shit ton of stuff. If you look on the screen right now, you'll see that it comes with the Saren Warframe itself, if you don't have that, the Orphid skin, some dual sword skins, a Sugatra, just like a bunch of stuff. And then there's even more stuff that I didn't list there. So it is a steal. You're getting so much stuff for $10, but I'm not sponsored by Discord or anything like that. I just got it through there and I thought that that was really neat. So let's talk about the pros and the cons with this Saren skin, okay? So one of the pros I would say is that it's got really clear color channels and really clear textures. You know exactly what's going where, and with the exception of the tertiary, there's very little bleed out. Some of the negatives are not really having a lot of options with the energy colors for the emissive, because honestly you should be able to color it a bit more, but it only seems to take one color off of your emissive energy rather than both. And that's really disappointing, especially considering the energy colors are such a huge tax on the texture economy. Some of the downsides are major clipping with the arms and the jacket, and then also just everything to do with the feet. Overall, should you buy this? I would say if you like Saren or you like unique deluxe skins with very interesting color channels, yes, absolutely. But if you're more of a fan of atypical color channels and Saren isn't your first choice for Warframes, probably not. Although if you're a collector, this is kind of mandatory to have in your inventory.
To kind of wrap up the review as a whole, I'd say I'd have to give the Saren Orphid skin about a 6.5 out of 10. Maybe a 7, but that's kind of pushing it. There's a lot wrong with this skin in terms of thematic and overall presentation that doesn't really make me happy, and so that's pretty much my final score. What kind of review would this be, though, without me giving some kind of constructive criticism back? I think if there was anything that I would change about this skin, it would be the helmet, the spores on her hips, and definitely the feet. In terms of the helmet, something more along the lines of the Saren Nepalus helmet looks really well with this skin. Additionally, for the spores on her hips, you could actually replace that with some kind of a belt, and that might make more sense considering that the jacket appears to be more of a traditional kind of jacket, rather than something that is very Warframe inspired. And while I appreciate uniqueness, I feel like if they would have toned down that uniqueness on the feet, that the skin would have been a lot better. Going with a shoe design that's more traditional would make a lot more sense here. If you enjoyed this video, go ahead and give it a like or comment about it so that I know to keep making them. If not, that's okay. I also stream. If you want to check that out, links to that and other social media are in the description. If you enjoy my style of content, please consider subscribing. Otherwise, I guess I'll just explode or something.